Welcome again, episode 2 on July 1st. Holy guacamole. Lighting the candle, a world that works. We are having some kind of fun today. I'm here again with my dear friends Lisa Sheehan and Ken Caputo. Both of these folks I hold in high esteem because of the different work that they've done for me and how tolerant they are of my idiosyncrasies, shall we say. And in the meantime, they're just lovely people and fun to hang out with. So why are we here? We're here to really seriously make a difference in the world. We're interested in lighting the world on fire in a very powerful way with empowered people enjoying their lives and spreading that to all the people that they run into. Kind of a crackpot idea, but I had a lot of time on my hands a year ago, and so did the folks that are on with me. And this is what we're bringing you. So we just had a very nice chat and discussion that started off with critical thinking, and it led and segued into something else that is going to be great for us to talk about. Ken, do you want to take it from here?
Yeah, just thinking about the role that the Dunning-Kruger effect has to play in critical thinking, working through something as you're learning it and understanding it, how you communicate it, and how you relate to other people in regards to that. So, and just the quick, like the Cliff Notes version is just if you ask someone who knows nothing about something, what do you know about that? They have very low confidence, and they will, and not like they're not confident. They just have low confidence in their understanding because they don't know what it is. So it's easy for them to say, I don't know, right? But then if they start to learn about it, especially in the first few months and up to a year, their confidence skyrockets. All of us. I'm saying they, but this is me. This is all of us. So I know when I learn something new, I get super enthusiastic about it, and I want to tell everybody about it like I'm now an expert in that thing, right? And I've learned to be very vigilant in the fact, we talked about intermittent fasting, and just fasting in general. I wanted to tell everyone about it. I wrote some blog posts about it. And now I'm more cautious because it's been longer and I realize there's a lot I don't know. So, so what happens is when you're first exposed to new information, your confidence in your understanding of it is disproportionate to your actual experience with it. And then what happens is after about a year of, as long as you continue to learn and have experiences with that thing, your confidence starts to dip. And and after you see this in martial arts. Ask someone who's been training in the martial arts for a while how much they know, and they'll tell you nothing. Right? So because you're now starting to realize how expansive and complex the topic is, and then slowly the confidence goes back up the longer that you have experience with it, as you reach this kind of inflection point of matching of experience, understanding, application, your confidence in conveying that to others. So, so how much of the challenge we face right now is, I hear on social media the word, you need more critical thinking, and a lot of times when I see who they are, they've learned something about a topic and they're very passionate about it, and they have a high level of confidence about something that they just discovered 3 weeks ago. So there's a disproportionate. So how beneficial would it be? I guess my question is, how beneficial would it be to recognize and be vigilant against that very human, normal, natural effect that we all have? How do we mitigate the potential miscommunication, tension, and damage that can cause, both personally and in our interactions and engagement with others?
So
there
Do
you
you
go.
have any ideas?
Go ahead, Lisa.
I do, but I want to hear from you guys first.
I mean, when everything you said, of course, you can sense and feel that that's so true about human beings, and that how you stop. I was trying to think too, like enthusiasm is probably a nice human reaction to keep you going to learn more.
Yeah.
So that could be a benefit. but then how to realize that you're just like a talking tip of the iceberg instead of the iceberg itself.
So
I don't know. I mean, would you pause a minute?
So
Go ahead,
how people get set up, okay, as conversationalists, and the ones, there are famous people that debate each other and take turns arguing for and against the point that they actually believe in, right? So the main thing in terms of what true critical thinking is, that you can tell that somebody's had no experience with it at all, is it has absolutely nothing to do with making an argument that brings you back to what you already knew before, okay? Critical thinking is about an exploratory conversation and what sorts of questions can be asked to unearth new information, to, create this new access to the body of knowledge. And so when, like you said before, somebody who's been in the martial arts field for a period of time, when you ask them what they know, somebody who's a critical thinker might be asked, what's the value of what you know? They're going to be the same answer. What I know is not a great predictor of what comes next. It's of no use or value to me whatsoever in this next moment, that I must live fully as myself and be fully present and mindful, and bring everything I possibly have to this moment. And I should go to bed tired every night. That's not a bad thing, to be engaged in a conversation with somebody for 2 or 3 hours and then needing to go take a nap. I like to do that. I mean, for me, that's time well spent. Do you know what I'm saying? And it's almost always an opportunity to increase relatedness to that person, to share stories. And especially if we get to the point where, if we started at a disagreement level, Ken, and I can actually say, all right, so let's find out what we do agree on. Let's start from there and see where our common ground is.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really interested in your take on this. I've got this experience on it. But to kind of bring this full circle, one of the trainings that I did, which was a 72-hour through a weekend kind of a deal with a forum leader, I kept predicting what the next thing would be, right? So you got this and you got this and you got this, and so then what happens? And then I would say, and he said, all right, Bill, what you are, you're a brilliant idiot savant in terms of grabbing shit out of your ass, okay? And you haven't earned the right to say it. And I said, well, what do you mean by that, Roger? And he said, well, I'm going to tell you exactly what I mean. I was in the service and we were over in Japan, and my buddies and I, we go out to dinner and we go over to this place and they've got a rock band there and they're singing, "She loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah." So we're going, oh boy, somebody from home who speaks English. Well, how cool is this, right? And we go up and they talk to the band and they're all speaking Japanese. They didn't speak a lick of English, but they could sing the Beatles songs, perfectly. And he said, Bill, you are a Japanese guitar player, okay? And I said, and I can feel the love in your sentence while you're telling me that, Roger, in front of these other 80 people that are here, and everybody just cracked up. But I did feel very small right at the beginning until I looked at him and we stared at each other and smiled for a while. And I said, this would be a good place for me to sit down, wouldn't it? And he goes, you are such an intelligent So it's right along what you're saying, where people who think they know a little something but haven't earned it through experience, they've picked it up in conversation, and it's the next enjoinder, to like a predictable set of circumstances. And there's a lot of that going on, Ken. And so much of it goes on, and you can tell that that's what's happening, because if you challenge them on what are you talking about, the next thing out of their mouth is calling you some sort of name. They really don't have an awful lot of grounding in terms of, well, let's have a moral, ethical, adult conversation here about what you're standing for. And you can pick 100 different topics, to leap off of it to have this conversation. But if people weren't just taught to parrot the 3 or 4 top talking points as justification for why people are a certain way, as opposed to let's engage a conversation to find out how people actually are. Wouldn't that be far more interesting, than the point of view that we both started the conversation with? You bring what you've got, I'll bring what I've got. You interested in finding out what's so, or what might be more truthful than what we already thought we knew? I don't hear that out there in conversations very often.
Agreed.
Yeah. So now say some more about that effect and recognizing it, and who has responsibility, for pointing that out in a positive way, and what might be positive ways to point it out that forward the action in the conversation without diminishing, anyone's ego or their self-value or self-worth. My forum leader friend did a fantastic
Well,
job by making me a rock star so that he could then tell me I didn't know my ass from a hole in the ground, right? I thought that was pretty great.
yeah, and well, it's funny because it's there's the challenge with, and actually one of my mentors, his catchphrase to remind me, because I have a personal tendency to do this, he says, don't over personalize it. And he's reminding me that what I know is not me in either direction, good or bad.
Right.
So, and like, with my martial arts teacher, if I do something really, really well, and I was kind of feeling a little uppity about myself, he asked me, what was that? And I learned to give the response, nothing special. It was just, I just had a good repetition, and I can celebrate that. I can recognize it. But if I over personalize it, you end up in that place. A guy named Dennis Waitley, who wrote The Psychology of Winning, and he worked with a lot of Olympic gold medalists who were dealing with depression because their identity was tied up in having won the gold medal, which they may never do again in their life. So
Right.
now who are they? And they become kind of lost. They redefine what it means to be them. So I guess the point is, as far as Dunning-Kruger, you've learned something and have this confidence in it, but it's just a thing that you are learning about that it's not you, and if it turns out to be wrong and you feel like that makes you less, like if you felt lessened by that experience of him pointing that out to you, you may get defensive, you may get angry, you may go on attack. There's all kinds of things that it's the fight or flight, it's the wrong part of the nervous system that's responding. But if you're like, yeah, I mean, I could be more skillful in that, or, this is a part of how I've learned to move through the world. And that's a changeable thing. It's impermanent. It's not really me. And if you separate your identity from that thing, you're not going to take it so personally, So, and it just seems like, I mean, social media is a great petri dish where someone has come to be told something or to believe something or understand something. And when they announce it, if it's challenged, where it gets very angry and aggressive is when you're not challenging the information, you're challenging me, my beliefs, who I am as a person. There's an over personalization that creates that blockage. So to me, one of the best ways to recognize and mitigate the damage of the Dunning-Kruger effect first would be, it's not personal. This is not a judgment on you. It's not even your information. You got it from somewhere.
Right.
So, what's the part of you that feels the need to defend this so passionately without being curious about how true it actually is or taking in different viewpoints, right? And then the other thing that struck me was just, Deepak Chopra used to talk about there's the thinker of the thought and there's the observer of the thought, and you're having all these thoughts, and if there's a part of you that just notices you're having them, without judging them or even trying to figure out where they come from, maybe not even asking why. Like I find myself having thoughts, especially when I feel threatened or not accepted or criticized. Those are all very, very difficult for me personally. So I've learned to just think, that was interesting. Where'd that come from?
Right.
And a lot of times there's not even an answer, but it calms me a little bit.
Yes.
So I don't respond in a way that's not appropriate. because the thing I've learned in 30 years of martial arts training is to be patient and kind and understanding, and to do that from a place of strength, not weakness. So that's really more than fighting ninjas or whatever else. You know, I mean, I'm healthy physically and mentally, emotionally, but it's really just kindness and patience, you know? So anyway, so I think that, you know, just summing it up so that you guys, I can shut up, you know, understanding identity, identity as relevant to the information or even the experience, and then separating the thoughts from the part of you that observes the process of having those thoughts.
Sure.
Could be helpful.
Lisa, do you have a thought? Because I
Well, my thought was, so the,
go ahead.
no, I know, because, well, the defensive part was, I think that could be the invitation to question your need to express this information, because so otherwise, you know, you normally could go about expressing all kinds of information. Like you said, you get so excited when you get something new and you want to share it with other people, so you do. Most of the times it's not even question, it's like, oh, that's cool, or I think I like that, or something like that. But then when somebody does challenge you, that would be the time to ask those questions then. So I think that's a good point, Ken, that would be, that to me, that would be the invitation to question that and to not fall into that syndrome.
And just to share something personal to understand it. So I grew up having, you know, my dad, you know, left when I was young and wanted to have nothing to do with me. So, and it created, there are all kinds of, you know, dynamics that were created from that. So, and what I kind of internalized from that is I have to be perfect to be accepted. And I need to behave in a way where people will like me. And, you know, I would do anything to not create a situation where if someone disagreed with me, I'd think they didn't like me, you know, or if they criticized me, they didn't like me. So, you know, so there's a lot of work to be done as I got older to recognize that. But that instinct is still like kind of there down deep. So it's observing it and being compassionate with that part of me, you know, that is matured and everything. So, and the only reason I bring it up is every single human walking this planet has some unknown influences that are creating a cause and effect that we are unaware of, and they may even be unaware of.
Right.
So that's going to impact all of this, you know, and you hear it all the time. How could they possibly think that way? How could they not? They're a product of all the things that have happened to them that you will never know or understand because you're not them. And whether you agree with it or not is really irrelevant. And, you know, it's not about being right. It's just that's who that human is. So now critical thinking becomes, can we separate that and look with curiosity situationally and see if we can navigate something that's complex that probably doesn't have a very good answer. And even if we come up with a very good answer, it's not going to be a good answer 6 months from now. You know?
Well, see, the response is all of us are trained that being agreed with is good and being disagreed with is bad. Okay? We are not trained that each time somebody says something different than you, there's this opportunity for the two of you to learn something together, right? So I want you to know, I mean, when this happened to me 25 years ago, standing up, I felt, you know, afterwards, I could tell you the words, what I felt. No, I just felt flushes of, you know, pain and you know, my stomach turned and this and that and the other. It was all just a very visceral reaction until I had a moment to like right the ship and stop and think about what he was saying and be able to look at him. And then this big shit-eating grin from 30 or 40 feet away, as I knew he was throwing me a lifeline and not an anchor, you know? And he was more interested in putting me into this situation where I could have that in the body feeling and know what it felt like to learn something, right? So was it important that what I learned was what we were talking about, or that I had an experience that was full body with all the reactions, and on the other side, I could actually tell this story 25 years later and laugh about it? We're all that kind of people. And we don't get trained to go and look for those types of situations where we can be painfully uncomfortable. So one of the things that I see going on is that when people get to that point very quickly, and I've been in a couple of these conversations lately where the headlines get exchanged, who you've been listening to. We never say who we've been listening to. We just say what's so. This is what's really happening out there. And then by the third or the fourth, rejoinder or exchange, yes, and you're a gunky, or whatever it is. So my response now, this is the response I'm training myself to, that's not a conversation ender. My response is, well, look, hang on just a minute here. Let's not give this up so quickly, okay? I may be a gunky, and I know you to be an intelligent person. So let's stop for a minute and let's go back and let's find out what rang true for you. What was it that had you buy into this philosophical argument that you have no other evidence other than what you've been hearing in the media and social media? I want to understand that because I know you to be a thinking person. I know you to have an opinion that's of value, so that I can bring value to that person and restore the opportunity and the mutual respect in the conversation where we disagreed with each other. But I have to give up my defensiveness first, and I have to be aware and awake enough to do that. Well, for a little bit, I used to catch in high school, and it's like getting hit in the face mask with an 85-mile-an-hour fastball, right? It's there. It happened very quickly. Now what the heck do I do? Or getting the wind knocked out of you, or something along those lines. And I think that's kind of how many people experience that, so that the defensive answer is there to preempt any other difficult, conversation about, where are your facts? Where did you hear this? Prove to me that you know it, which is the normal course of events in that type of discussion, right? Nobody's ever saying, well, I believe something completely different, and now I'm going to give you, 10 minutes of time for you to tell me everything you think you know about that, so that I can glean some tidbits for me and upgrade and possibly change my mind. I don't know human beings running around having that conversation. What if we did?
It's funny, I just flashed on Stephen Covey, just seek first to understand, then be understood.
Yes.
So lots of people do that. Maybe it's I always wonder, as we talk about this, wouldn't it be cool if you could do like a global survey? What's the percentage of people who are really challenged with communicating and figuring things out, and what's the percentage that are actually doing pretty well? Because it feels to me that, like, especially if you use things like media and social media as a measuring stick, you're seeing the loud ones, that are willing to put themselves out there on that platform. And I just don't know how proportionate or indicative that is of where we're at as humans running around the planet doing all the things that humans are doing. I have no idea, but it'd be a really cool thing. I'd be curious,
Well, I'll tell you what, pretend like we just did a 6-month survey. We commissioned somebody and we spent $9.7 million to go gather all the facts, okay? From a broad brush standpoint, what percentage of the people on the planet, what are we, 7.6 billion or 7.7 billion, well, however many it is, how many of those people would ever open their mouth without fear of being smacked in the mouth, or being taken off in chains, or not being fed that day? People we're talking about are the people, anybody that hears this conversation. If you're that person who could, kind of rein things back in, rewind for a minute and say, hang on, let's learn something together, if not about what is going on, at least about each other, and let's make this an opportunity to become better friends. Man, you're in rarefied air. There's just not enough people in the world that are in a position to actually have that conversation at all. They're too busy trying to eat. They're too busy trying to migrate from this place to that place, or whatever else, right? So it's a blessing. Yes, Lisa, go ahead.
No, if you're listening to this podcast,
You're one of those people. I mean, for God's
Yeah,
sake, you are.
absolutely.
And I'm thinking the majority of people aren't even thinking about their thinking.
Yes.
You know, they're unaware that there is even a different way to think, and just completely unaware of it. So, you know, the fact that you open it up to there are other ways to think. I mean, I have this. My father gives me great opportunities to have critical conversations all the time because he's my dad and I love him, but we differ in a lot of different outlooks. So, but I found myself opening up to critical thinking by asking him a question that's on the sideline, you know, finding one of the points that he brought up and then expanding on that instead of just immediately being, you know, like just attacking him for not, you know, for thinking the way he does, or how could you kind of thing.
Right.
So I mean, it takes a lot of practice, but you know, I've noticed that about myself, that I've come down to where it's easier to just ask him a simpler question about a sideline issue that's connected to it, and then go from there.
It's brilliant. And that, if you take away anything from this podcast today, where we were talking, and we are talking about asking a better question. Sometimes it's not a question that changes the world. Sometimes it's a question that makes the previous discomfort disappear for a moment, to where you invite somebody to come back and try the next thing, and what you would consider normally a failed conversation, not worth having, you know, even one more sentence come out. And I'll tell you what, Lisa, what you just said is just so powerful, because there are so many of us that actually have that reaction with family members and loved ones, or people that we've worked with a very long period of time, where it's gotten down into 3-word sentences with them, and that's how we get by. And nobody actually ever takes the time to find out who they really are related to. They're related to all the memories, you know, they're related to all the failed instances in the past where things didn't work out. And I love this podcast and you guys for having this opportunity to just talk about those fundamental human being things, you know, who we all are for each other. And I will just say one more thing. I actually love Deepak Chopra. And one of my big takeaways from him, and in the training that I did with Landmark, was listen to yourself, listen.
Mhm.
Be the observer, adopt the observer's role, and then make your judgment in terms of the quality of what you're hearing, in terms of being actionable or just being noise. You know, we all think that what the thoughts that we have is actually thinking, but 80,000 thoughts a day, we just aren't that smart, people. If we have 1 or 2 really good ideas in a month, I mean, ideas that will withstand the test of somebody else's scrutiny and poo-pooing, that's pretty cool. But I think the challenge for us all going forward from here is to go out and take a risk. Go out and have an opportunity to make a difference with one person in the world. And it might just be you that you make a difference with. That's not so bad, is it?
Nope.
Not at all.
So once again, you guys give me my life every single week, and I appreciate and love you for it. And I just want to say, any closing remarks, Ken?
Just the only thing that came to mind, a guy that I met not that long ago, and he was just sharing some philosophical stuff, and he said you have kind of 2 paradigms you can operate under. You know, one is that the universe is knowable, and the other one is that the universe is unknowable and it's observable.
Right.
And which do you want to choose? You know, and it was just an interesting thing. I've reflected on that a lot. And personally, I've just found that, you know, just knowing it's unknowable, but I can observe, takes a lot of stress off of trying to be right or trying to grab for answers like you're grabbing at water. So it was just kind of an interesting, like almost like a way to, like a little mantra when you're feeling, you know, when you're feeling like you need to ground, you know.
Yeah, more often than not, if you're upset or angry or there's something like that going on, it has nothing to do with the other person. That was sitting there waiting to be woken up in the conversation. They
Yep.
just happen to be at the wrong place at the wrong time. Forgive and forget and give yourself some room to grow. Lisa?
Because you said wonder, Ken, and then because I was just reading an article about they've discovered that even most things are influenced by being observed, and not just humans. And I think that goes back to like we're all just energy and stuff like that. So just observe what other people are doing, and how you react to it, and then just be gracious with yourself.
Mm-hmm. We're all dancing in the quantum field, right?
That's right.
Even the people that will never hear this, they're all part of the conversation.
Absolutely.
They don't hear the music.
Yeah. So thank you again. And ladies and gentlemen, be the spark that carries to the next candle. And by all means, create a world that works. All right. Love you all. Have a great rest of the week. Happy 4th of July. And looking forward to seeing you again next week.
Sounds good.
Bye for now.
That's good timing.
You've been listening to Lighting the Candle, a world that works, part of the Exvadio Podcast Network. You can hear us at exvadio.com/podcasts, Apple Podcasts app, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and wherever you find podcasts.